Hey, it's me. Before we get started today, small favor. We've been doing this podcast for almost 2 years. And as it turns out, there's a lot of you out there listening. We are very grateful for that. But we want to know more about who you are. That way, maybe we can make more shows you like. So take a couple of minutes and fill out the Seattle Now listener survey. Okay? You can find the link in the show notes of today's episode. And thanks.
Hey there. Good morning. It's Diana Opong in for Patricia Murphy. She got boosted yesterday, so she's taking it easy. It's Thursday. This is Seattle Now. We're going on year 3 of the pandemic. And yeah, people are struggling with their mental health. Some of them have found solace on TikTok, where everyone from professional therapists to patients share insights. We'll meet a creator who's roaming Orcas Island with a squirrel puppet who preaches non-judgment. But first, let's get you caught up. Remember that story last week about SPD faking radio chatter about right-wing extremists during the 2020 racial justice protests? Well, it looks like it wasn't just protesters listening in that fell for it. Our friends over at the South Seattle Emerald report that even some city officials thought the made-up radio story was real. A Seattle Public Utilities manager sent an email to a handful of staff in order to prepare if things got out of hand. The thing is, the email was sent around 3 hours before the SPD officers started their act. It's good news for tenants in need, but not so much for landlords who need their renters to pay. Mayor Harrell said yesterday he's extending the city's eviction moratoriums for residents, small businesses, and nonprofits for 1 more month. This is the 7th extension since the start of the pandemic. Landlords have been arguing for months that the city's moratorium should end due to the financial burden they are facing. And Bumbershoot has a new lease on life. Seattle Center officials said yesterday it's getting a new producer who promises to reimagine the annual End of Summer Festival. The contract went to Seattle-based New Rising Sun, made up of a team that includes people behind Numos, McCall Hall, and Vital 5 Productions. They're pitching making Bumbershoot a year-round event that emphasizes community and better reflects Seattle's current identity, growth, and direction. They're also promising to massively lower what's become a pretty spendy ticket.
Are you carrying something today? Something heavy? You know, like a crappy thought about yourself? Something like, I'm not good enough, I'm broken. I wonder what you're carrying. Whisper it into my fuzzy ear.
Meet Squirrel. He's a hand puppet and the star of Squirrel Dialogues, a video series available on YouTube and TikTok. Squirrel talks through difficult issues like coping with loss, negative self-talk, and procrastination. It's an effort to help others who might be dealing with similar problems. Squirrel isn't the only character. There are other woodland creatures, including Worry Fox, who fuels anxiety and unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Maybe Scotch is more your game. Maybe a Lafroig, something peaty, notes of tobacco and leather.
And there's Rage Rabbit, who channels our inner anger.
This is bull. Just give me the drugs.
Squirrel Dialogues is the creation of this guy named Evan Wagoner Lynch, an artist based on Orcas Island. And he told Patricia Murphy that all of this began at the start of the pandemic as a form of self-therapy when he felt like he needed someone to talk to.
I wanted to make a video series, but I couldn't do it with anybody else because of COVID. And then I remembered that I have a squirrel puppet that I had gotten a couple years prior at a Goodwill. And so I pulled him out of storage, and this sort of Boston, New York voice came out of him, and I just started recording conversations with him.
So was there a moment when you realized something like Squirrel Dialogues could help other people?
Yeah, so this year I lost a friend to suicide who was an old family friend. And I went to his memorial, and I noticed that no one was really talking about how he had died. I really felt like that conversation was missing for that community. I could just tell people were just left scratching their heads. They were in a lot of pain. And so when I got back to Orcus, I had this renewed energy to really double down on the Squirrel Dialogues project, because I realized that is how I could speak to things like suicidal ideation or mental health challenges. Because I think our instinct is to not talk about them because we find them scary or shameful. But everything that I've heard about issues around mental health is that they really are eased and relieved by speaking them aloud. So that really put a lot of fire into the project. And that's actually when I switched over to TikTok.
Evan, I'm so sorry about your friend and your loss. I am wondering if this did help you heal in some way from that. Definitely.
Yeah. Sometimes when I make these videos, I'm thinking about a particular person, like I'm speaking to them. And sometimes I'm speaking to this friend. Sometimes I'm speaking to my nephews who are 3 and 7. Or I'm speaking to them when they're a little bit older. Yeah, so I'm definitely inspired by people around me, the stories, as well as my own experience.
There really is a universal sense of loss right now for all of us. And in some ways, I suppose this dialogue can contribute to us realizing and sharing about it.
Yeah, I think only good can come from talking about this together.
What do you think about when you make them? Like, how do you decide the things you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so the way I make them is I generally go for a hike in the woods here on Orcas Island. And as I'm hiking, I start kind of thinking about what's up for me, what I've been thinking about, or maybe what were some prompts I've been getting from my viewers. And then I just start talking to myself in the woods, basically, and sort of hashing out what I'm going to talk about. And then I get a squirrel out of my backpack and my camera set up, and I record myself in the woods chatting with Squirrel. And it's generally improvised because I really want to keep that conversational quality.
A beautiful walk in the woods is a great way to start a conversation with yourself.
Yeah, well, the woods, before I did Squirrel Dialogues, the woods were part of my therapy. One of the things I've learned in living on Orcas is how healing nature is. So I spent a lot of time in the woods, done a lot of hiking, a lot of meditating. And I find it's a very inspiring space to make healing art. And then it's its own character. I sometimes forget how charismatic Orcas Island is. And then I'll post these videos and people say, "Where are you? What is this magical place?" So I think it's healing all by itself. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I wonder if creating characters, because Squirrel is just one of your characters, you actually have a couple of other ones that we can talk about. I wonder if these characters are a way to address mental health struggles in a way that is less threatening, in a way that feels less confrontational.
Yeah, that is not something I really understood until the commenters started telling me that. You know, they would say things like, "Oh, I feel so safe," or like, you know, somehow hearing this from a squirrel is so much easier. Yeah, I think because the squirrel is a children's toy, that's sort of soothing even to an adult. And then the character, I really try to model sort of a older, wiser character who really sticks to radical non-judgment. And I think people really respond to that.
You put Squirrel Dialogues out on YouTube and TikTok, and I am curious what role you think social media can play in addressing mental health issues.
So there are therapists on platforms like TikTok, and they provide educational content. They usually have a warning that, "Oh, this is not therapy, this is just education." I am not a therapist. I'm an artist, and I'm also a person who lives with mental health challenges like depression and anxiety. And I've been really thinking a lot about what my role is, because I'm not a therapist. And where I've landed is that I think it's really important for regular people, or people who've had their own experiences with mental health challenges, learn how to help their neighbors. And so I think of it that way, as sort of a community resilience piece. But it's definitely a dance. I'm always trying to be very careful not to tell people what to do, not to step into a therapy role. I sort of follow a peer counseling model, which is more about talking about your own experience and offering insights from your own life without telling people what to do or giving them a diagnosis.
Let's talk about your characters really quickly. You have Squirrel, and you have a rabbit. You have a rabbit who's a little stressed
Rage
out.
Rabbit, yeah.
Rage Rabbit. I think that's the closest one to probably me. I saw your chat with Rage Rabbit about violent dialogue, and I thought,
How's this for violent language? I think you are a spiritual bypassing, head in the sand, hippy-dippy, nincompoop.
Well, Rage Rabbit, I think you're doing your best.
Oh, well, I don't really have a snappy answer for that. I got to think about that.
did you come up with those? Like, I know you said that squirrel was a thrift store find that you had on hand, but was it intentional with your other two characters?
The first character I added was Worry Fox, who speaks an anxiety voice. He sort of speaks for anxiety. And he and Squirrel, I found them together at Goodwill. And then I got two more puppets. So I got a rabbit who just came out of the package looking really angry. So it was just obvious that he was Rage Rabbit. And then I got this raccoon, and she's more of a wise, very cultured character. She's inspired in part by Esther Perel. You know, if you're familiar with her, she has that beautiful accent and all that wisdom.
Are you trying to do this alone? Are you trying to pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Are you trying to fix yourself or the world all by yourself? If you are, I want to commend your attempts to change yourself and your circumstances. And also, I don't think this works.
Evan, I wanted to talk to you one more time before I let you go about the fact that your channel is so successful and what that says about the need for mental health care, for the need for us to take care of ourselves.
One of the eye-opening things with the project, particularly when I moved to TikTok, was just like the instant interest in the project, and it sort of skyrocketed. And on one hand, as an artist, that's exciting, but as a human being, just seeing the type of comments I was receiving, just all the suffering, all the pain, it was kind of heartbreaking. So if anything, the attention sort of solidifies my resolve to keep doing this work, because the need is very obvious and enormous. And I see myself as just spreading a little bit of hope or a little bit of self-compassion as widely as I can. And I can only trust that it helps, just, you know, if it helps one person or it helps a few people a little bit, I think it's worth doing.
Evan Waggoner-Lynch, creator of Squirrel Dialogues, thank you for doing what you do, for creating a little peace for people in the world. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Trish.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Caroline Chamberlain Gomez produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Diana Opong. See you tomorrow.
Hey, Seattle Now listeners, I'm Libby Dankman, and I'd like to invite you to check out a new local show from KUOW. It's called Soundside. Every week, we'll bring you stories and conversations about the Puget Sound region and the people who call it home. You can catch Soundside live on KUOW Monday through Thursday at noon, or in your podcast app. Just search for Soundside. Thanks, and talk soon.